MRide ready.
Welcome back to Vision Auto Garage. In this episode I'm working on the wiring for the RAUDI Metro. I've already made a good start on wiring up the Motogadget Munit Blue, Acewell 7659- and the Metro ignition switch and steering column switchgear. A few basic tools and wiring diagrams are all you really need to do this job. Crimp terminals are best as they cope better with vibration and movement compared to soldered joints. All of the inputs on the M unit are switched to earth, so I simply earth the positive feed to the Metro switches, and I'll have to use a relay for the ignition switch. Wiring the M unit is very simple with clearly labelled ins and outs. These units are designed for motorcycles, but I've found them to be very suitable for custom installations on classics and modified cars.
MRide ready.
The M Unit Blue is Bluetooth enabled and pairs with an app to enable troubleshooting, monitoring and configuration. With the unit wired up, I'm able to switch each circuit from the app and monitor its load and battery voltage. If I were to overload a circuit, the digital fuse would turn it off and notify via the app. Once the issue was resolved, a simple tap on the screen enables the circuit again. All of the outputs are rated to 10 amps, apart from aux 2 which is 20 amps, and the starter circuit at 30 amps. Changing to LED bulbs where possible will reduce the load on the lighting circuit significantly. I'm using some super cheap 11-pin connectors to get everything hooked up, but the quality is poor and I plan to change to Deutsch connectors for the final install. A PowerVamp 22Ah 12V gel battery is plenty for a minimal electrical system as long as you have a good alternator. Motogadget also make this nifty little Mbutton which converts all switches to a single wire digital signal, enabling only two inputs on the M unit, ignition switch and Mbutton. The Acewell 7659- has an optimistic 19,000 RPM range, but also every function and light I could need. I've wired the backlight in with the running lights which come on after ignition. The indicators and high beam lights are wired into their switches. It features a shift light, temperature warning, trip computers and coolant and oil temperature inputs. The next circuit I'm keen to complete is the starter. I've run a positive battery cable along the side of the tunnel to the starter and a wire for the starter solenoid. The M unit requires switched earth on all its inputs, so the live feed on the ignition switch needs to be run through a relay to comply. Motogadget also make a solid state relay that I'll use for the final install, but for now a standard 12V 40A relay will suffice. 12V from the ignition switch is fed to pin 85 and then to earth on pin 86. Pin 30 goes to the M unit start input and pin 87 to earth. When the key is turned, M unit sees an earth and triggers the starter output. The lights are configured to come on after ignition, so this test shows the relay is working as planned.
MRide ready.
Next, the starter solenoid control wire is connected to the M unit starter output. Et voila!
MRide ready.
Via the app, I can see that the battery voltage is getting low and that the starter solenoid is drawing around 7 amps. That's no trouble for a 30 amp circuit. Now onto the Emerald K6 ECU, which needs two 12 volt sources and an earth. First, it needs to be mounted. This spot on the firewall looks great and I can utilise the stud that's already there. I want to minimise vibration to the ECU, so I'm using a few strips of this thick foam tape on the back of the K6. Next, I connect 3 wires to the ECU's 36 pin plug. Pin 11 and pin 28 need a 12 volt source. 11 should be from the ignition switch and 28 from another suitable source. Pin 29 is the main earth and should ideally be connected directly to the battery negative terminal. Referring to wiring diagrams and pinouts ensures I should only have to do this once. I've installed the 3 wires over length, so I can cut them down and terminate them neatly. First, the earth is cut to length and a ring terminal crimped on. Then it's connected to the negative post on the M unit, which is also directly connected to the battery negative terminal. Next, pin 11 for the ignition switch 12 volt is wired to the same power feed as the M unit, switched by position 2 of the key. Lastly, referring to my hand-drawn pinout for the interconnecting loom I've made, pin 28 of the K6 is connected to aux 2 output of the M unit. With the Emerald K6 wired for power, I can configure the M unit to turn on aux 2 after ignition.
Emride ready.
Another feature of the M Unit Blue is the built-in alarm and keyless go system. The alarm has several sensitivity settings that can be adjusted to suit the installation. The keyless go uses Bluetooth to sense proximity and enable or disable the alarm and immobiliser. The proximity is set via a learning process in the app. It can be tested quickly by simply turning off and on the Bluetooth on your device, and the indicators activate to confirm. There's plenty more to do on the wiring, but for now, if you've enjoyed this episode, please like, share and subscribe. Thanks for watching.